की जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जू की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु महाभागवत श्री गौर किशोरदास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानुगौर्य गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारदा गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम चय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौरमंडल व्रजमंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदत्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय। सारार्थ-दार्शिनी वृत्ति की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणीति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णा चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सार्वभूत हृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमं चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everybody. Indira Mataji, Dandavat Pranams, Prajumna Prabhu, Mantra Murti Mataji, Gargarajji, Madhavi Didi. Dandavat Pranams, everybody. So it's been quite a little break now we've had. How many days? But finally, we're going to start again with our Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading, a reading from the Shruti Stuti, the prayers of the personified Vedas. So I'll just read the translations for the verses that we read previously, and then we'll continue on from where we left off. Okay. Sri Parikshit said, O Brahman, how can the Vedas directly describe the supreme absolute truth, who cannot be described in words? The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature. The Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material. But the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme Lord, who is devoid of these qualities, is transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. Okay. Shukadeva Goswami said, the Supreme Lord manifested the material intelligence, senses, mind, and vital air of the living entities so that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification, take repeated births to engage in fruitive activities, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately attain liberation. Those who came before even our ancient predecessors meditated upon the same confidential knowledge of the absolute truth. Indeed, anyone who faithfully concentrates on this knowledge will become free from material attachments and attain the final goal of life. In this connection, I will relate to you a narration concerning the Supreme Lord Narayan. It is about a conversation that once occurred between Sri Narayan Rishi and Narad Muni. Once, while traveling among the various planets of the universe, the Lord's beloved devotee Narad went to visit the primeval sage Narayan at his ashram. From the very beginning of Brahma's day, Lord Narayan Rishi has been undergoing austere penances in this land of Bharat, while perfectly performing religious duties and exemplifying spiritual knowledge and self-control, all for the benefit of human beings in both this world and the next. There, Narad approached Lord Narayan Rishi, who was sitting amidst Narad approached Lord Narayan Rishi, who was sitting amidst sages of the village of Kalapa. After bowing down to the Lord, O hero of the Kurus, Narad asked him the very same question you have asked me. As the sages listened, Lord Narayan Rishi related to Narad an ancient discussion about the absolute truth that took place among the residents of Janaloka. The Personality of Godhead said, O son of self-born, once, long ago on Janaloka, wise sages who resided there performed a great sacrifice to the absolute truth by vibrating transcendental sounds. These sages, mental sons of Brahma, were all perfect celibates. At that time, you happened to be visiting the Lord on Shvetadvip, that Supreme Lord in whom the Vedas rest during the period of universal annihilation. A lively discussion arose among the sages on Janaloka as to the nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Indeed, The same question arose then that you are asking me now. Although these sages were all equally qualified in terms of Vedic study and austerity, and although they all saw friends, enemies, and neutral parties equally, they chose one of their number to be the speaker, and the rest became eager listeners. Sri Sanandana replied, After the Supreme Lord withdrew the universe he had previously created, he lay for some time as if asleep, and all his energies rested dormant within him. When the time came for the next creation, the personified Vedas awakened him by chanting his glories, just as the poets serving a king approach him at dawn and awaken him by reciting his heroic deeds. The Shrutis said, and I think we read to verse 16 when I was in the airport. I'm not sure if any of you saw that when I recorded made the recording in the airport, because that was, I didn't even realize, but that was when Umadidi had departed. I pre-recorded it anyways. The Shruti said, this is a Shruti speaking to wake up Mahavishnu. Victory, victory to you, O unconquerable one. By your very nature, you are perfectly full in all opulences. Therefore, Shivas, could you bring me some water? By your very nature, you are perfectly full in all opulences. Therefore, please defeat the eternal power of illusion, who assumes control over the modes of nature to create difficulties for conditioned souls. Thanks. 1 second, just drinking some water. O you who awaken all the energies of the moving and non-moving embodied beings, sometimes the Vedas can recognize you as you sport with your material and spiritual potencies. This perceivable world is identified with the Supreme, because the Supreme Brahman is the foundation of all existence, remaining unchanged as all created beings all created things are generated from it, and at last dissolved into it. Just as clay remains unchanged by the products made from it, and again merged with it. Thus, it is toward you alone that the Vedic sages direct all their thoughts, words. After all, how can the footsteps of men fail to touch the earth on which they live? So I'm pretty sure I read up to 16. Yeah, I read 16. Okay, so Therefore, O Master of the three worlds, the wise get rid of all misery by diving deep into the nectarian ocean of topics about you, which washes away all the contamination of the universe. Then, what to speak of those who, having by spiritual strength rid their minds of bad habits and free themselves from time, are able to worship your true nature, O Supreme One, finding within it uninterrupted bliss. Just checking the comments. 1 second. Okay, Indira Mataji, you listened to that recording. Great. Because I was worried that I was going to be going ahead of anybody. Okay, perfect. What verse number is this? That's 15. And now 16. Okay, now we're at 17, right? No, that's 16. Okay, 17. Oh, the meter for this is very different. Let's look at it here, because, okay. Yeah, this meter is really strange. Okay. Actually, I remember what is it in sorry, this just give me a second to think. Um how did that verse go in Rupa Shiksha? Took me a while to get used to saying it. I think it might be the same meter though. Dritaya eva shashvanta subhrito yadite nuvida mahadadamadayon damasrejan yadanugrahata purusha vidon vayotra charamo na maya dishoya sarasata sarasata na sarasata parang tamatayar eshvav eshvavsheshamritam avasheshamritam sorry eshvavasheshamritam. Only if they become your faithful followers are those who breathe actually alive. Otherwise, their breathing is like that of a bellows. It is by your mercy alone that the elements, beginning with the Mahat Tattva and false ego, created the egg of this universe. Among the manifestations known as Annamaya and so forth, you are the ultimate one, entering in within the material coverings, along with the living entity, and assuming the same forms as those he takes. Distinct from the gross and subtle material manifestations, you are the reality underlying them all. Okay, so you are the ultimate one, entering within the material coverings along with the living entity and assuming the same forms as those that the living entities take. Hari Bol Bhavatarani Mataji. Okay, so Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. This verse answers the question, what happens to people who fail to perform the worship mentioned in the previous verse? The Shruti said, those devoid of devotion to you resemble dead corpses, and although alive, their breathing is no better than the breathing of a blacksmith's bellows. But if they act favorably, Anukul, if they act favorably and become your obedient devotees, then they can be called living. But, one may object, the bodies and minds of materialistic non-devotees seem to display the symptoms of life. The Shrutis respond, through the mercy gained by worshipping the Lord, the Mahat Tattva, consciousness, false ego, intelligence, minds, and all the senses which produce the gross and subtle bodies, creates this universal body in totality and individuality. In other words, the demigods of the elements, such as consciousness and ahankar, worshipped the Lord and received his mercy, which empowered them to create. This is described in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 3.5.39. Deva uchuhu nanamate deva padaravindam prapannatapo pashamatapatram yamulaketa yatayon jasoru samsara dukam bahirut utkshipanti. The demigod said, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. The Shrutis. The elements of consciousness and false ego are seen to be engaged in worshipping you, Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the bodies of those whose consciousness, ears, and senses are not worshipping you do not in truth possess consciousness, ahankar, and senses. Thus, they are like dead bodies. Then Lord Vishnu says, then what form of mine should they worship? Shrutis. He whose form resembles that of a man, a Purusha. Therefore, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are also the Supersoul in all living beings, and the great form of bliss called Brahman. But in relation to the Annamaya gross body, Pranamaya life air, Manomaya mind, Vijnanamaya jiva, and Anandamaya paramatma, described in the Brahmanda Vali of the Taittiriya Upanishad as Vastipucha, Prithivipucha, Atharvagira Pucha, Mahapucha, and Brahmapucha, or the 5 Purushas. So, but in relation to those 5 things, you are the ultimate person. You are the Purusha, the Anandamaya Brahmapucha. So among the gross body, life air, mind, and Paramatma, you are that Paramatma, that ultimate person. Lord Vishnu, why am I not all the other Purushas, such as the Annamaya Purusha as well? Shrutis. You are inherently connected with these other coverings like Annamaya, in that you are the cause, and Annamaya, you are the Avasheshamritam, you are the cause, and Annamaya and the other Purushas are the effects. So the mind, the jivas, all these other things are the effects. Thus, as the cause of everything, you are in one sense identical with the manifest products of creation. But in your original form, in your original Swarup, as the Anandamaya Purusha, the Paramatma, Supersoul, you remain distinct. Furthermore, among all these, you are the ultimate essence, Avashesham. Thus, Sri Krishna is distinct and transcendental to all the gross and subtle manifestations of Annamaya and so on. Or another meaning of Sad Asata Param, distinct from gross and subtle matter, is you are separate and superior even to the Anandamaya Purush, Sad, as well as the lower Vijnanaman, Prana, and Annamaya Purushas, all the Asata. So so Vishnu is even above Paramatma, the Anandamaya Purush, which is as well as all the Vijnana, Man, Pran, and Annamaya Purushas. The last word of all authoritative scripture is contained in the Taittiriya Upanishad 271 Sutra, Raso Vai Saha, which proclaims Sri Krishna to be the infinitely expanding embodiment of divine pleasure, Sarva Brihat Tatmananda, Tamananda, Brihat-tamananda. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10:43-17 describes Krishna as Cupid incarnate, Strinam Smaro Murtiman. The Gopal Tapani Shruti, the Uttara 96, states, Yo so Jagrat Swapna Sushuptim Atitya Turyatito Gopalaha. The cowherd boy Gopal transcends not only the material consciousness of wakefulness, dream, and deep sleep, but also the fourth realm of pure spiritual awareness. That's Brahmananda. Is that what, Srivas, is that what the 4th realm of pure spiritual awareness would be, Brahmananda?
I don't know.
By saying Brahmano hi pratishtaham, I am the basis of Brahman, the Bhagavad Gita 14:27 clearly establishes that the personal form of Sri Krishna is the most exalted entity of all. The Shrutis continued. One second, just checking. Okay. All right. So the Shrutis continued. We have definitively perceived this truth, or ritam, this truth, ritam. Or ritam, reality, can mean, having attained our forms as Shrutis by austerity, we have realized this. The verb ritam means to go, and to go can further refer to obtaining or knowing. Therefore, ritam means which is perceived or obtained. In this connection, the following statements of Shruti describe the results of turning away from the Lord. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasavritaha Tangste pretyabhigachanti ye ke chatma hano jana. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. That's the third verse of Ishupanishad. According to the Agni Purana and the Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, the word Asurya means a person devoid of Vishnu Bhakti. This definition is stated in the Agni Purana. Dvabhutta sargo lokesmin daiva asura evacha Vishnu Bhakti paro daiva asurastar viparyaya. There are two kinds of created beings in this world, godly and demoniac. Those dedicated to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu are godly, and those opposed to such service are demoniac. The positive value of Vishnu Bhakti, devotion for Lord Vishnu, is expressed in the following Shruti verses. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman tang pita gang ye nupashyanti dhiras tesham shanti shashvati netareshan. Among all the eternal conscious beings, there is one who supplies the needs of everyone else. The wise souls who worship him in this abode attain everlasting peace. Others cannot. That's from the Katha Upanishad 2:13. I always understood this. He's the supreme, like, eternal being among all eternal beings, right? And Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. And he is the supreme, what do you say, sentient beings among all sentient entities. Anyways, the following verses from the Taittiriya Upanishad establish the nature of the soul. So these following verses of Taittiriya Upanishad establish the nature of the soul, the super soul, and Brahman. Sava esha purusho anarasamayas tasyedam eva sira ayam dakshinaha. Paksha ayam uttara paksha ayam atma idam pucham pratishta. After the Purusha is ascertained to consist of the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya coverings, then the fifth manifestation, Anandamaya, is elucidated. Anandamaya is Paramatma. It's Taittiriya Upanishad 2:2-3. Tasmarva etasmar vijnanamayad anyantara atma anandamayastasya priyam eva siro modo dakshina paksha pramoda uttara paksha ananda atma brahmapucham pratishta. The Lord has assumed the form of a man. This is his head. The Lord has assumed the form of a man. This is his head, that is his right side, that is his left side, that is his torso, this is his lower portion or feet, and the shelter of all. That's from the Taittiriya Upanishad 2:1-3. More specifically, the indwelling supersoul of the living entity is referred to in the words Yo Vijnane Tishtan Vijnanantaro Yasya Vijnanam Sariram, who, standing within the conscious entity, pervades him, and who assumes the conscious entity as his own body. That's from the Brihad Aranyanashad 3:7-22. By the reference given in a different Shruti, Atmani Tishtan, the term Vijnanamaya refers to the Jivatma, and Anandamaya refers to the indwelling supersoul of all beings, the Paramatma, who is the supreme object of worship. This is the Vaishnav conclusion. The words Priya, Moda, Pramoda, and Ananda, quoted above from the Taittiriya Upanishad 2 and 3, should not be explained in terms of the happiness generated from seeing a sun. Rather, It is according to the progressive degrees of the manifestation of ecstasy in the supersoul, the exclusive embodiment of all ecstasy, that the four terms Priyam, Moda, Pramoda, and Ananda are given as various names of Brahman, who is the underlying basis of all ecstasy because he possesses the most extensive ecstasy of all, the Brihatama, the most extensive ecstasy of all. Pratishta means shelter in the sense that it is established within it, as in the statement Brahmano hi pratishtaham. After the Taittiriya Upanishad makes the final the Upanishadic statement Raso Vaisaha, establishing that Ras is the highest, the Gopal Tapani Upanishad declares that Krishna, the highest form of bliss, is distinct even from the fourth level of consciousness, Atityo Turyatito Gopalaha, and states that his body, which is filled with prema ras, is the topmost object of worship. The Anandamaya Supersoul is simply one of Krishna's expansions, as stated by him, Vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam ekangshena stito jagat. With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire. That's Bhagavad Gita 10:42. Therefore, the crest jewels of the Shrutis worship Shri Krishna as shown in the Brihad Vamana Purana, wherein it describes how the Shrutis attain the service of Krishna as gopis. This will also be shown in verse 23 of this chapter recited by the Shrutis. Striya Urugendra Bhoga Bhojadanta. Thus, the Shrutis conclude that Krishna is the most attractive among all the personal forms of Godhead. Understanding this, Narad Muni will later offer obeisances to Krishna in the words Namas Tasmai Bhagavate Krishnaya Malakirtaye. I offer my obeisances to him of spotless fame, the Supreme Lord Krishna. That's verse 46. Even though he is standing in front of Lord Sri Narayana Rishi. Let me check the comments really quick. Haribol, Yashoda Didi, Raseshwara Ji, Surya Didi. Yeah, see, with all these prayers to the Shrutis, it really does, like they're responding to different things that are said in different Upanishads and just all different schools of thought. They come up with certain conclusions, and so these Shrutis are also what do you say? They're disproving all these different philosophies that people have. Udarmupasate yarishi vart masukur padrisha parisarapadang parisarapaddatim hridayan arunayodaharam tata udagaranam tatavadhama shira paramam punarihayat sametyanapatanti kritanta mukhe. Okay, that's the meter. Let me try again. No, I'll do it for the next verse. Okay, translation. Among the followers of the methods set forth by great sages, those with less refined vision worship the Supreme as... Those with less... Let me reread this. Among the followers of the methods set forth by great sages, those with less refined vision worship the Supreme as present in the region of the abdomen. Arunis worship him as present in the heart, in the subtle center from which all the pranic channels emanate. From there, O unlimited Lord, these worshippers raise their consciousness upward to the top of their head, where they can perceive you directly. Then, passing through the top of the head toward the supreme destination, they reach that place from which they will never again fall to this world, in mouth of death. They will never again fall into this world, into the mouth of... Commentary. Verses 16 and 17 spoke of bhakti within the object of worship being So verses 16 and 17 spoke of bhakti with the object of worship being Bhagavan for the devotees. The present verse speaks about the yoga with Paramatma as the object of worship for the yogis. The Bhagavad Gita 15:14 says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamastita Anapana Samayukta Panchamyanam Chaturvidam. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of food. The word udaram, abdomen, in this verse refers to the Paramatma in the form of Lord Viśvanātha situated in the stomach region, who bestows Kriya Shakti, the energy for activity. Those of the sampradaya of sages who limit their meditation to this form of the Lord are less intelligent, kurpadrisha, meaning literally, having eyes clouded by dust. This is because the abdomen is grosser than the heart. Kurpa can also mean subtle or acute vision. Then the meaning would be, those sages who worship the Lord in the abdomen with the vision of later approaching the more subtle region, heart region. Then the meaning would be, those sages who worship the Lord in the abdomen with vision of later approaching the more subtle heart region. The superior yogis, known as arunis, on the other hand, the supersoul in its form as the indwelling companion of the jiva in the heart, the Lord who bestows jnana shakti, the power of knowledge, and inspires one with all varieties of practical intelligence. This form of the Lord in the heart is very subtle and difficult to perceive. The heart is the place from which the nadis, the numerous channels of prana, emanate and extend outward to all parts of the body. O Anatta, the soul rises up toward the head, the effulgent location where you, the Paramatma, are perceived. And beginning from the Muladhara chakra and passing through the heart, the soul rises up to the Brahma Randhra, the topmost chakra of the roof of the brain. In actual fact, the Dhamma, or the place of the Supersoul, appears in all three of these locations. Having attained that topmost Dham on the top of the head, they do not fall down again into the cycle of material existence. This description is corroborated by several Shruti mantras. Udharam Brahmeti Sharkaraksha Upasate Hridayam Brahmeti Aruna Brahma Hai Vaita Ita Urdhvam Tvevo Dasarpat Tatchiro Shrayate. Those whose vision is clouded identify Brahman with the abdomen, while the Arunis worship Brahman in the heart. One who is truly Brahman realized travels upward from the heart to take shelter of the Lord, who is manifested at the top of the head. The Upanishads refer repeatedly to the indwelling Paramatma. Shri Shvetashvatar Upanishad 3 verses 12 to 13 follows. Mahan Prabhur Vai Purusha Sattvasyasha Pravartaka Sunirmalam Imam Praptim Ishano Jyoti Avyaya Ankushta Matra Purushuntar Atma Sada Jananam Hridaya Sannivishta Hrida Manisha Manasabhi Kripto Ya Itad Vidur Amritaste Bhavanti. The Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes the Purusha to initiate the expansion of this cosmos. He is the perfectly pure goal that yogis strive to reach, the effulgent and infallible ultimate controller. Measuring the size of a thumb, the Purusha is always present as the Supersoul within the hearts of all living beings. By exercising proper intelligence, one can realize him within the heart. Those who learn this method will gain immortality. Shatam chaika cha hridayasya nadyastasam murdhanam abhinisritaika tayordvam ayan amritatvam eti vishvan anya utkramane bhavanti. There are 101 subtle pranic channels emanating from the heart. One of these, the sushumna, extends to the top of the head. By passing up through this channel, one transcends death. The other channels lead in all directions to various kinds of rebirth. Upanishad 8.6.6. So Nagopal was just speaking about that, wasn't he? About all the channels that pass out. Okay, so let me try this meter again. Vida jatiyo nuyanta abhivi. Sorry, okay. Swakrita vichitra yonishu vishan iva hetutaya taratamatashchakasya nalavat sakrikritanukriti atavitatasvamushvavitatam tavadhama samang virajadiyo nuyanta abhivipanayava ekarasam. Let me try that last line again. Virajadiyo nuyanta abhivipanayava ekarasam. Dang it. Anyways. Apparently, entering among the variegated species of living beings you have created, you inspire them to act, manifesting yourself according to their higher and lower positions, just as fire manifests differently according to the shape of what it burns. Therefore, those of spotless intelligence who are altogether free from material attachments realize your undifferentiated, unchanging self to be the permanently... Sorry. Let me reread that. Therefore, those of spotless intelligence who are altogether free from material attachments realize your undifferentiated, unchanging self to be the permanent reality among all these impermanent life forms. Commentary. Someone may object. If the supersoul enters countless varieties of material bodies, then he would seem to become limited according to the body, and thus be similar to the jivas. Therefore, how can he be worthy of worship? This verse answers. The Shruti said, after creating the many species of material life, you expand into your own creation as a supersoul in order to provide the intelligence and inspiration every living being needs for his day-to-day existence, as stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad 6.2.6. Tat shishtva tad evanu pravishat. After creating this world, he then entered within it. The Lord enters the material world, however, without forming any binding connection to it. Therefore, the word vishan iva is used to express only seeming to enter. Taratamatash chakasi means that the Paramatma enters the body of every living being, from the great demigod Brahma down to the insignificant germ, and exhibits differing degrees of his potency according to each soul's capacity for enlightenment. Analavat swakritānukriti. Just as fire ignited in several objects burns according to the different forms of those objects, so the Supreme Soul, entering the bodies of all living creatures, illuminates the consciousness of each conditioned soul according to his individual capacity. Thus, among these impermanent species, your personal form, with its particular qualities, remains permanently as the supreme reality. Therefore, those of pure intelligence know your eternal, supreme, and undifferentiated Swarup. Your personal form is the unchanging embodiment of pure ecstatic enjoyment residing in all the temporary bodies. In other words, Sri Krishna eternally maintains his personal form of immeasurable, unalloyed spiritual pleasure. Who are they who know? They are those who are completely free of material dealings and devoid of karmic results in this life and the next. Because you are the source of everything, your designations of being independent are not subject to any ranking of hierarchy. Since your opulences never fail, you are worthy of worship. The following Shrutis illustrate this verse. Tat Shrishva Tad, having created the universe, he then entered in it. He then entered it. That's from Taittiriya Upanishad 261. Eko Deva Sarvabhuto Gura Sarvavyapi Sarvabhutantaratma Karma Adhyaksha Sarvabhuta Divasa Shakshi Cheta Kevalo Nirgunascha. The one Supreme Lord lives hidden inside all created things. He pervades all matter and sits within the hearts of all living beings. Supersoul, he supervises their material activities. Thus, while having no material qualities himself, he is the unique witness and giver of consciousness. That's from Shvetashvatar Upanishad 11. Swakrita Pureshvam. Sorry. Let me check the comments again. Uh-oh, it's been cutting out. Oh man, has it been cutting out a lot the whole time? Okay. Almost at the end of our reading. Maybe we'll just finish this verse 20. Swakrita pureshvamishvabhyahirantara samvaranam tava purusham vadatantyakila shakti dritong shakritam iti nirgatim vivicha kavayo nigamapapanam bhavata upasat ingrima bhavuvi vishvasita. Oh, that's why this is difficult. It's because the first and third lines are different than the second and fourth lines. Okay. The individual living entity, while inhabiting the material bodies he has created for himself by his karma, actually remains uncovered by either gross or subtle matter. This is so because, as the Vedas describe, he is part and parcel of you, the possessor of potencies. Having determined this to be the status of the living entity, learned sages become imbued with faith and worship your lotus feet, to which all Vedic sacrifices in this world are offered, and which are the source of liberation. Commentary. Having established the Supreme Soul, the Paramatma, as the proper object of all worship, this verse establishes the position of the subordinate Jiva soul, a finite expansion of the Lord, as his worker. The enjoyer, the Jiva, Purusham, the Jiva, is a singular form to express a class that exists in all bodies of men and other living beings created by their karma. The Vedas refer to the finite enjoyer of the material body, the Jiva soul, as an expansion, as an anksha of the transcendental reservoir of all potencies, the Supreme Lord. Actually, the Jiva is well known as the Lord's Tatastha Shakti, the marginal potency situated between spirit and matter, but he is not an independent Vishnu expansion. This is stated in Vishnu Purana 6.761. Vishnu Shakti para prokta kshetra gyakya tatha para. The internal potency of Lord Vishnu is spiritual, as verified by the Shastras. There is another spiritual potency known as kshetra gya, or the living entity. And the Bhagavad Gita 7.5, prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam. Beyond this inferior energy, there is another superior energy known as the living entity, the jiva bhutam. The Sri Narad Pancharatra says, Yat tatastam tu chid rupam svasamvedyad vinirtam ranjitam gunaragena sajiva iti kattate. The marginal potency who is spiritual by nature, who emanates from the self-cognizant samvit energy, and who becomes tainted by his attachments to the modes of material nature, is called the jiva. Although the jiva is thus the Lord's marginal potency, the Lord's tathastha shakti, he is sometimes referred to as Angsha, as stated by Lord Shri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mamadaksho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. The Mahavaraha Purana explains how the soul is similar to an Angsha. Shvangshaschata vibhinangsha iti dvaidhasa ishyate angshino yat tu yat swarupam yatastiti tad eva nanumatropi bhedam svangshamshino kvachit vibhanangshalpa shakti syat kinchit samartha-matrayuk. The Supreme Lord is known in two ways, in terms of his plenary expansions and his separated expansions. His plenary expansions and his separated expansions. Between the plenary expansions and their source of expansion, there is never any essential difference in terms of either their capabilities, forms, or situations. The separated expansions, on the other hand, possess only minute potency, being endowed only to a small extent with the Lord's powers. So there's function and vibhinangsha, right? What is the minute jiva soul like? The soul is never totally covered by either the external potency of Maya or the internal potency, Chit Shakti, the Antara Shakti, the Bahiranga Shakti and the Antaranga Shakti. Or else, the soul is he who is covered both internally and externally by subtle and gross coverings. Thus, considering the status of the jiva bound up by Maya, or his general position, the faithful sages living on this earth worship the desire trees of your lotus feet, growing in the Vedas to destroy the bondage of material life. Faithful means those who have full belief in Krishna's own words. Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. He surrenders to me, crosses the ocean of Maya. That's from Bhagavad Gita 7.14. The following statements from the Shrutis support this verse. Go suparno bhavato brahmano. Yes. Go suparno bhavato brahmano kshabhutas taro bhukta bhavati anohi shakshi bhavati. On the tree of the body are two birds. One is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the witness of the other. He is the witness, and the other is an enjoyer. That's from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad 2.23. Mathura Mandale yastu Jambudvipe stitotva. Yor chayet pratimam prati same priyataro bhuvi. One who worships me in my deity form while living in the district of Mathura, or indeed anywhere in Jambudvip, becomes most dear to me in this world. That's from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Uttara 47. Alright, so it is 8:30, and this next, so let's stop here, and then this is a lot more dense, this chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Alright, so we read up to verse 20. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Rangagandhar Vikagiri Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Ju ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nityal Vishnupad Ashata Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai. Nityal Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Gokshara Maharaj ki Jai. Nityal Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki Jai. Nityal Pravishta Sarvabhaktas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupa Anugod Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Padadashanath Shar Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Nama Chai Shri Hari Das Ṭhākura ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Mathura Vrindam ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradhata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Pradevi ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta ki Jai. Shri Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Shri Shruti Stuti ki Jai. Shri Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura ki Jai. Sārārtha-darśinī Vriti ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams everybody. Yeah, the internet was terrible today, wasn't it? We were supposed to have a different internet, like Wi-Fi thing set up here for a while now. And we keep on even going to the Wi-Fi place, and the guy is like hiding from us, even though we're paying for it. And we've called him like 1,000 times. Really frustrating. But as soon as that gets set up, which should be any day, then the internet will be great. And I'll be gone, yes. Haribol, everybody. See you all tomorrow. Oh, and there are 3 more days of this Shruti Stuti. And then I think we have like 5 more days of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading, or like 6 more days of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading, and then we're done with the 10th canto. All right, well, everybody.